My name is Michael Young, and I'm a lawyer who handles will contests in Texas. In this video, I want to talk about the primary assets that are involved in an estate and that would be involved in a will contest. And this is extremely important because litigation is very expensive, particularly litigation involving contested estates. And there really needs to be enough assets at issue to justify paying a lawyer a substantial amount of money or to have an experienced will contest lawyer take the case on a contingency fee basis. And many times I get potential clients who call me, and understandably, they're a little confused about what type of assets would be at issue. And oftentimes, when I ask about the assets, they'll tell me, well, Mr. Young, my father had $3 million in a brokerage account. And I have to explain to them, well, those assets very likely won't pass through the estate. They'll pass according to a beneficiary designation. Not always, but typically investment firms, brokerage houses like that, they strongly encourage account owners to designate a beneficiary. And they pay according to the beneficiary designation, not according to the will. That's typically the same with life insurance. Once again, not always, but it's important to look at that. Or sometimes they'll talk about, well, my mom had these gold bars in the safe. Well, yes, that typically will pass through an estate, but those are personal items that often get stolen or quote unquote lost and can't be found. But what are the assets that often are the primary ones in an estate? Well, most often it's going to be land, real property. That could be a house, it could be rural acreage. That is typically the first thing that I will focus on because land doesn't walk away. Land has to be deeded and it's a public record. That's typically the most important asset. And often in Texas, you can have someone who may pass away with only a few, tens of thousands of dollars in the bank or in savings, but they may have an $800,000 house that they've, owned. Maybe it started off as $250,000 house, but over the decades they've paid it off, and the market value may be worth $700,000-800,000 or more. Or they may have inherited rural land. Their parents, when they pass away, may have inherited land that's been in the family for generations that at one point was maybe worth $300 or $400 an acre, and now is worth $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 an acre. Those are the types of assets that will typically pass through an estate, and there often sometimes be business interests. There could be commercial properties, although those merit substantial investigation because they're often not directly owned by the decedent. Instead, they will be owned by a LLC or a company that may actually be owned or controlled by a decedent, so they still would go through the estate. But this is a complex issue, and it's really important that you call a lawyer who's experienced in evaluating will contests and other estate disputes.